Hi guys, this is Wim from Belgium. You know, after listening to several theories about the flat earth and the spherical theory, I thought, well, they are both right, but how can we combine them? And then one day I had an idea, a possible solution. I'm not saying it's true or not true, but it's a possible solution. It's a very simple one, but at the same time very, very scary. Listen up. Okay, we are going to start with the spherical theory. So, it's simple. We take a ball and we call it Earth. We surround this ball with another ball and we call it the plasma belt. Then we take the sun and we let it shine on the Earth. The Earth is giving a reflection on the plasma belt. And on the plasma belt, we see our own reflection. The reflection is, surprise, the moon. What do you mean the moon is the reflection of Earth? What do you mean? Where are all the rivers and the forests? Yeah, but let's suggest that Earth is 1,000 times bigger than we are told. Then the moon is a reflection of a gigantic big Earth. So, let's move over to the flat Earth. It's simple. We take the flat Earth and we zoom in into the moon. And then we see all those circles, the so-called asteroids impacts. Well, let's suggest that one of those asteroid impacts is a flat Earth. That would mean that we are surrounded by other biosystems. So, if this theory is correct, now we understand why Antarctica, the so-called Antarctica, the snow wall, is being militarized. We are afraid of other biosystems attacking us. It's like in the series Game of Thrones, where there's a gigantic ice wall protecting us from invading species. So, when you hear another story about aliens coming from other star systems, well, maybe they won't be coming from other star systems. They might be coming from planet Earth. Maybe on one system you have the humanoid species being dominant. Maybe on the other biosystem you have the reptoid or the insectoids being the dominant species. And when you hear the story of Jules Verne, when people are going to the middle of Earth and they discover a totally new world, maybe there are tunnels here on Earth where you can reach other biosystems, and instead of going to the center of Earth, you are going to another biosystem. So, why would they not be telling us this all? Well, maybe the elites are thinking, well, our population is not ready for this information. They will panic when they know that we're not alone on this planet. Well, for myself, I would rather hear the truth than being lied to all the time. So guys, what do you think? You know, what I'm saying here is not the absolute truth. It's a suggestion. It's a good idea. It's creative. So let me know what you think. If you think it's pure madness, no problem. I can live with that. But I think there's some good ideas in it. What do you think? Hello everybody. For those who didn't see the first part, I'm giving you a 30-second review of part 1. Here it comes. We are going to start with the spherical theory. So, it's simple. We take a ball and we call it Earth. We surround this ball with another ball and we call it the plasma belt. Then we take the sun and we let it shine on the Earth. The Earth is giving a reflection on the plasma belt. And on the plasma belt, we see our own reflection. The reflection is, surprise, the moon. What do you mean the moon is the reflection of Earth? What do you mean? Where are all the rivers and the forests? Yeah, but let's suggest that Earth is 1,000 times bigger than we are told. Then the moon is a reflection of a gigantic big Earth. So, let's move over to the flat Earth. It's simple. We take the flat Earth and we zoom in into the moon. And then we see all those circles, the so-called asteroids impacts. Well, let's suggest that one of those asteroid impacts is a flat Earth. That would mean that we are surrounded by other biosystems. Here is part 2. I would suggest fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a heavy ride. Okay, people will say, well, this theory, it's not real. What are you going to do with a solar eclipse? Okay, I will explain solar eclipse to you. Watch this. Before we go any further, I would like to remind you of the theory of Plato, the allegory of the cave. In fact, we think we see something, but we really see shadows of the real world. So, first we take the sun, then we take the earth. We create the plasma belt. On the plasma belt, we see the reflection of the sun. On the plasma belt, we see the reflection of Earth. The reflection of the sun is shining on the Earth. So everybody is thinking that the sun is shining on us, but in reality, it's the reflection of the sun that is shining on us. So, what is a solar eclipse? A solar eclipse is the reflection of the Earth. The so-called moon is blocking the reflection of the sun. If Obama would be standing before the mirror and his mirror image would block the sun behind him, and he thought that the guy in the mirror was someone else, he would say, hey, this guy is taking away my light. Please move aside. But in reality, it would be himself, his mirror image, that is blocking the light. Now, I will take you one step further. It's even more crazy. Listen to this. Okay, but now we have one giant problem. One side of the Earth has been lit by the reflection of the sun, but the other side is dark. How is that possible if the sun is shining there? And then I remembered from our good friends, the Nazis, they had a cult of the Schwarze Sonne, the black sun. So I thought, maybe our sun is black. That was a gigantic idea, and I will explain it to you. Well, the old theory is, you have darkness and the light is shining in the darkness. What if this theory was wrong? Let's suggest that there is black light and white light. And white light would be the inversion, the reflection of black light. So if you have a black sun shining and it mirrors in the plasma, it could become white light. So white light is the reflection of the black light in the plasma belt. So when you are standing outside at night, the black light is shining on you. I know it sounds crazy, but let's assume that water is reflecting black light and is turning it into white light. Plasma is a form of water. So, if the black light is shining at night on the earth, the black light will be reflected by the water on the earth, and it will become white light. that white light will reflect on the plasma belt. So if you look in the sky and you see all those white dots, that could be all water worlds on a gigantic globe. So the stars would be a map of the Earth reflected on the plasma belt. So, and what star would be the Earth? Well, it's quite simple. There is only one star that is not moving. That is the polar star, Polaris. So when you see a time lapse of the stars turning, that means that the Earth is turning. And at the center stands Polaris. So, I looked on the internet for a photo of Polaris. And I discovered one, the best possible resolution. So, I took Polaris. I made it a little bit darker. And then I took the flat Earth. Oh my God. This is not true. Yes. I guess it is true. We are Polaris. We are the reflection. Polaris is the reflection of Earth. If we could take a gigantic telescope, we could see ourselves mirrored on the plasma belt. So I really don't know if you're still sitting in your chair. You might be lying on the floor, laughing or crying, I don't know. Maybe you say, this guy is nuts. Okay, no problem. But I'm afraid I might be right. Sleep well, my friends. Hello. In this video, I will prove that the moon is a reflection of Earth. And secondly, we live on a gigantic ball. I came to this conclusion by assuming Earth is enclosed in a big mirror plasma ball. Give it a thought. Let's create a plasma ball. Put Mr. X into it. Mr. X is looking at himself. Let's spin Mr. X. This is what he is seeing. Put a light source on Mr. X. Now let's speed up the moon and put it next to Mr. X. But I have a problem now. I had to speed up the moon. Here are the moon phases for 1 month. And here for a year. Conclusion. The light needs 30 days to turn around the moon. And it takes only 24 hours to turn around Mr. X. If the moon is the reflection of Mr. X, how come the difference? Let's ask Mr. Einstein. It's all about the time dilation theory. Give me a minute to explain it to you. You have a light clock with 2 mirrors in the opposite direction and the light beam bouncing between the mirrors. So, you take 2 light clocks. One light clock is standing on the Earth. The second one you put on a spaceship. When the spaceship starts flying, the light beam will have to cross the distance the spaceship is flying. Therefore, it will take longer for the light beam to go from one mirror to the other. The faster the spaceship goes, the longer it will take, and therefore time will slow down in comparison with the clock on the ground. Here you see a computer image. The red ball is going faster, but time is slowing down. Here we see Mr. X turning, and we see his mirror image turning faster because it is on the outside of the circle, and Mr. X is on the inside. On the left, we see Mr. X experiencing real time. On the right side, we see the mirror image slowing down due to time dilation. Mr. X sees himself in slow motion. Left, the Earth, right, the Moon. If the reflection of Earth is 30 times slower than Earth itself, that means if Earth is 5 billion years old, we are looking at the image of Earth being 170 million years old. Has life already started? So, if you take a telescope and you look at the Moon, you probably won't see any humans running around. Now I will prove to you that we are living on a greater ball. What if Mr. X would wonder, hey, I'm always seeing the front of my face. How would the back of my head look like? Is it possible to see it? I would say yes, but we have to play a trick here. I will put a fly on the back of Mr. X, his head. What would the fly be seeing? It would be seeing the same light movements, but from the back. So let's take the little ball theory. Let's take the United States. Let's presume that the USA is the front side of Mr. X. Then we take on the opposite side of Earth, we have Europe. And we would make that the fly side. So, what would the United States see as their reflection? They would see this. And what would Europe see as their reflection? They would see this. They would be seeing different moons. But everybody is seeing the same moon. Therefore, we must be all on the same side. But now we face an even bigger problem, because if the moon is our reflection and we are all at the same side, we are all at the same moment in darkness or in daytime. To understand this, we have to put the sun into the equation. What is the sun? Well, for this I'll make a hypothesis. You don't have to agree, but it really makes no difference for the rest of the theory. So, you have the plasma ball being heated up by an outside source. The ball is heating up and forming a blister, a ball with heated plasma, boiling and turning around and shooting solar flares. So, Mr. X is sitting in the plasma ball, spinning around, and he will see the sun. The first time he will look straight into the sun. This will result in this image. Mr. X cannot see his mirror image because he is looking straight into the sun. But Mr. X will see the sun a second time. The moment when he is with his back at the sun, he will see the reflection of the sun in the plasma belt. So Mr. X will see this image. So, if I make an animation of this, this is the result. Now, if Mr. X thinks he is looking at the moon, he thinks, look, the sun is turning around the moon, or the moon is turning around the sun. Or if Mr. X realizes he is looking at his mirror image, he thinks, look, the sun is turning around me. Wrong again. Now I will analyze this image. I did a little experiment with real footage. So I have a spotlight. I have Mr. X cut out and I have a mirror. When you are filming from the standpoint of Mr. X, your reflection is in total blackness due to the backlight. But when you are looking on the front, the face actually is receiving light. When I'm using a bowl, you can see it better. Here the reflection of the light, the reflection of the bowl itself. So you see the bowl is receiving light from the reflection from the mirror. So what I'm trying to say here is the reflection of Mr. X is in darkness, but Mr. X himself is not in darkness. So when you see the reflection of Earth becoming black, that is because of the backlight. This does not mean there is no light shining on Earth, aka the moon. So Mr. X is receiving light 2 times. Once from the front when he looks into the light, and the second time when the light is reflecting in the plasma ball. This results in this model. Watch the little crater moving around. So why did I put a crater in the ball? I was observing the moon's surface and I thought, meteorite impacts? No way. Now, that's more like it. But then you need air. Another reason to reject the idea that the moon is a rock in space. So let's take one air bubble and compare that with the moon craters. So let's take that air bubble again, replace it with the flat Earth map, put some water into it. You see that the North Pole is the eye of the vortex. Put that on a bigger bowl. And then you see low tide and high tide. So now we end up with this. We have a bigger Earth, a small crater, and 2 suns. But we still have a problem. If you watch carefully, you see that one part of the crater is in constant darkness. So let's go back to the moon. Here you see the images of the moon, but the moon is stabilized. Here you see the unstabilized movie. You can see that the Earth is wobbling. It's going up and down, up and down. So let's go back to Mr. X. Mr. X is spinning around, but he is also going up and down. The sun is below him, above him, below him, above him. Now you see the sun is above the crater. The top side of the crater is dark. Now the sun is below the crater and the low side of the crater is in darkness. Here you see the total image. Let's presume a drone is hovering above the crater. It would be seeing this. Now look at the upper side of the crater. Darkness, light. Now the downside, light, dark. So one part of our biosphere is receiving daylight from the reflected sun, and the other part of the biosphere is receiving daylight from the real sun. So, what would be winter and summer? I think the moon is making 3 movements: spinning, wobbling, and I think the 3rd movement is slightly moving from its position. To be absolutely sure, you have to study the moon for 34 years to have 1 year in real time. Here I move Earth closer to the sun on one side, and now on the other side. Winter on one side, summer on the other, and vice versa. Here is the end animation. Instead of wobbling the Earth, I had a higher light and a lower light. That would give the same effect. Now we have the final question. Where exactly on the moon is the Earth situated? To examine this, I have taken one movement of the moon and I have lit up the dark side, so I can check out the movement. Now I can draw 2 lines wherein the Earth is moving. The bottom and the top. Watch the black spot on the right. Now I can put a red line between the blue lines, so that is the axis on which the craters are moving from dark to light. Only on this axis you have craters with the day and night of 12 hours. So on the left you see the white spot. That is crater Copernicus. On the right side you see a black spot. That is called Mare Crisium. So let's take Google Maps and zoom in. On the left you see crater Copernicus, and on the right Mare Crisium. So you have to draw an axis between those two. Then we will zoom in and look for planets. Oops, what is that? Exactly on the place. I was looking for some craters. That could be planet Earth. You see this. What is it? At first I was thinking, well, it's a cover-up. But now, when I looked at it for the second time, I see that they are actually changing the shadows. You see, shadow on the right, shadow on the left, shadow on the right. Look at the smaller ones there. Are we living in a big hole or a small hole? I'm not sure. Time will tell. That's it. Now you can reject the idea of the plasma ball, or you can accept it. If you accept it, you will wake up on a bigger Earth. If you reject it, you can keep on dreaming of space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the New World Order Enterprise. Its continuing mission to invent new worlds, to destroy our lives and our civilization, to sell more lies than anyone has done before. someone mailed me. Take a look at the city of Aden in Yemen. These are fossils of two gigantic creatures. Would this be possible? Of course, but not on a little blue ball flying in space. These creatures would be too big to survive. You need a bigger space. What happened? Let me give you an overview of how far I got. You have prehistory on a bigger Earth. Then something happens. Reset. History on a flat Earth. Then something happens. Reset. Space age in a heliocentric model. Something will happen. Will it be the Great Reset? Put this on a timeline. Prehistory on the bigger Earth. Let's put a date on it, let's say 4000 BC. Start of history in a crater. 1250, half of the crater is morphed into an illusionary blue ball. Start of the space age. Now we are part of the Enterprise.
This advanced base, or space station, will be headquarters for the final ascent to the moon. The entire wheel will slowly rotate at 3 revolutions per minute. The resulting centrifugal force will produce an artificial gravity for the men in the rim.
Maybe it would be a good idea to focus on exploring space. Powered by the infinite amounts of zero-point energy, we'd be able to go across the solar system in a matter of hours. We could start mining asteroids and terraforming other planets. And maybe one day, we'd decide to relocate humanity altogether. But that's a story for another What If.
Finally, 2 small rocket motors on the rim, blasting for a few seconds, will set the wheel in permanent motion. To revolve 3 times a minute. will be headquarters for the final ascent to the moon. Final ascent to the moon. Ascent to the moon. Ascent to the moon.
We are on the moon, Werner. The only ascension I know is Christ going to heaven.
So, the spiritual realms, grave, Hades, that's the abode of the dead. The pit, Tartarus, bottomless pit, both on earth. Lake of fire, not on earth, out there somewhere. Heaven, earth.
Let's recapitulate. So you have Hades and Tartarus, then you have earth and heaven. So if you want to ascend to the moon, you must be in hell. Reminds me of the Solomon system. Counter-rotating. Let's presume that time exists. What would happen if you put a counter-rotating mechanism in it? One pyramid would pull it forward in the future, the other one would pull it back in the past. So you would be stretching time. Take a timeline, then you have the Solomon star. Now it starts stretching time. This is now creating a new timeline in which time is moving slower. Then you can start all over again, a timeline in a timeline. This is of course the concept of the movie Inception, reality in a reality in a reality. Let's go back to the arc. An arc in an arc in an arc. So the arc would be in this system kind of reality projection system. Let's give an example. 100 years in the space age would be 20 years in history, would be 4 years in prehistory. And everything, of course, would be playing out on the bottom layer. So instead of thinking in linear time, let's think in layer time. At the bottom, at a very slow speed, you experience prehistory. On top of that, history at a slower speed. And then we have the normal speed, space age. So in this example, we experience 3 time frames at the same time. Everything playing out in the past would be the blue pyramid, Tartarus, Tartaria. Matter in the top layer would manifest itself as mud in the underlying layer, and in the second layer it would manifest itself as stone or fossil. Crater Earth and fossil stories would be in the bottom layer. Everything concerning the mud would be in the second layer. Remember, we are experiencing these 3 timelines at the same time. If you have a normal size at the top layer, you will be a giant at the second layer and a titan at the bottom layer. Giants are depicted on medieval paintings. In one of my videos I found evidence of a titan. This could mean when you stretch time, you are shrinking matter. If there is a blue pyramid pointing downwards, there must be a red pyramid pointing upwards. If there are timelines in the past, there must be timelines in the future. Stories about the Greys, reptilians, probably are echoes from the future. If there are titans at the bottom layer, there are probably titans at the upper layer. The gods probably are titans. How would this work? Take Lizzie and the dragons as an example. In a previous video I showed that in the landscape of Britain you can find 2 dragons. The dragons are in the bottom layer, so let's say that 1 second would be 100 years. Could this be possible? Take a look at microscopic life. How would they experience time? What if we were the microorganisms in a living dragon? A dragon living at a slower speed and therefore manifesting itself to us as a fossil. On top of that you have the medieval buildings. But suddenly, because of this time experience, a new history is appearing in the mud. In other words, these buildings are sliding from the future into the past. In linear thinking, of course, this is impossible. Let's go back to the year 1250, when the Crusaders moved the Banban stone. In 1250 they rewind history with 450 years. I made several videos about this. But at the same time I had the feeling that there was another date, 1700, because then you have the rise of the machines. Let's say that in the year 1250 a new timeline was created, from 800 till 1700. That would mean 900 years. This would mean that in 2150 this new timeline ends. So I'm thinking, what if all the layers around the Earth are not air layers, but time layers? What if each layer was a remnant of previous times? Time layer in a time layer in a time layer? So you have the original Earth. Then you have reset 1. A reflective layer is created around the Earth. Now the Earth can see its own mirror image. Then something happens. Reset number 2. A second reflective layer is created in the first one. Reflection in reflection. Then a third one is created. Let's say we would have a reset in 2150. What would it be? Every reset the mirror is moving closer to Earth. So reset 4 would zoom in even more. So reset 1 would give you this reflection. Reset 2 this one. Reset 3 even closer, and the next reset would give you a very strange planet popping up in our solar system. What a strange planet. And after a while people start noticing it has this strange X form. Could it be? Nibiru, of course, would be the reflection of our crater, Sirius. Conspiracy theorists in this timeline will notice that the continents are reflected in Nibiru. And in this case, they will be right. If you think you can see them in the moon, well, you're missing a few resets. Makes me wonder what is playing here. It's obvious they are preparing us for the next reset. The end of days. The apocalypse. By now, everybody, except for some crazy conspiracy theorists, believe in the solar system. How hard would it be to persuade people that another planet is entering our solar system? This will be the official explanation. When they start pumping up the story of Planet X, the reset is near. But what will really happen? How are they going to create this event? Where are they going to get this amount of energy?
This advanced base, or space station, will be headquarters for the final ascent to the moon. Our space satellite will have the shape of a wheel.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, Werner. The International Space Station. What is space? When I'm looking again at the images of the space shuttle, it dawns on me that they can only film from the first time layer. Therefore, it will be impossible to shoot videos from the entire Earth. The question is, of course, what are they doing up there?
The Earth's axis points at the North Star, and the heavens have been revolving around that star since the dawn of time. Except they haven't. When the Egyptians built the pyramids, the North Star wasn't our current North Star, Polaris. No, it was Thuban. Why did it change? It's because the Earth's axis is moving. This motion was first discovered by Hipparchus. He was looking at the positions of the stars and comparing them with their positions a century earlier at the same time of year. He found that the stars were moving at least 1 degree every century. What could be causing this motion? When you're riding a car and the car turns, you feel an acceleration. In the same way that you experience an acceleration when a car turns, there is also an acceleration as the world turns.
This acceleration works against the force of gravity, so you actually weigh less at the equator.
And you weigh more when you're at the North Pole, 1% more.
This also causes the Earth to bulge. The Earth is 26 miles wider at the equator.
Because the Earth is not a perfect sphere, the gravitational force of the Sun isn't perfectly balanced. One side of the Earth gets tugged just a little bit more, and this causes the Earth's axis to spin, completing one revolution every 26,000 years. This also affects the length of the year. Now, you can measure the length of a year several different ways. One way is to look at the seasons. This is called the tropical year. Another way is to look at the positions of the stars. This is called the sidereal year. In January, the sun is in the constellation Capricorn, which means children born in January have Capricorn as their astrological sign. Over the course of a year, the sun moves through all the signs of the zodiac. Once the Earth is back in its original location, we have completed one sidereal year. But the tropical year doesn't depend on the Earth's position. It depends on the Earth's axis. When the North Pole faces away from the sun, we in the Northern Hemisphere experience the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. If you measure the length of time between two winter solstices, you get a tropical year. So, what's different? Well, if the Earth's axis is moving, it could line up with the sun before the Earth has returned to its original location. This is what happens. Although the effect is small, the axis only moves about 1/100th of a degree, and a tropical year is only 20 minutes shorter than a sidereal year. How did this affect the development of the calendar? Let's go back to the Romans. You may remember Julius Caesar as the man who conquered the Gauls, overthrew the Roman Republic, and named the month of July after himself. But in his free time, he cleaned up the Roman calendar, which was a total mess. Before Caesar, the calendar lasted between 355 days and 378 days. Caesar put it at 365 days, with a leap day every 4 years. This was the Western calendar, until Pope Gregory XIII said, "That's not good enough." He removed some of the leap days to better match the length of a tropical year. The Gregorian calendar wasn't adopted in Russia until 1918, and as a result, the Russians showed up at the 1908 Olympics 12 days late. Why did Pope Gregory base our calendar off the tropical year? What if he had used the sidereal year?
Imagine it's the year 15,000 AD.
And Americans are celebrating Christmas in the middle of summer. And that is what a sidereal calendar would mean. Now, a tropical calendar gets the seasons right, but it puts the Earth on the opposite side of the sun
In the year 15,000.
And so, Geminis will be born in December, Cancers in January, Leos in February, Virgos in March. Everything will be backwards.
And as we know from astrology, the position of the sun and planets at the moment you were born predicts all future events in your life. Here's a chart showing you the positions of the planets when I was born. As you can see, I am destined for greatness. Don't believe me? Just look at my horoscope today.
Today, you will make a YouTube video. Some people will think that you love astrology, while others will think you're being sarcastic. But everyone will love your video.